Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Kieran. I am alive. I hope you guys are alive. Hope you're doing well. Today is going to be a second edition of my new series, I guess. I don't know how new it is. I'm about as consistent as a dead seal, but it is my second video in this series, basically asking tarot or spirit for advice. Okay, so advice on topics that I guess would be important. Not necessarily like love and romance, but for instance, today's topic, which is going to be about depression. So for today, we're going to be talking about depression and what it is, basically the root of it, right? So I'm going to be asking tarot, what is the root of depression, in hopes that it might help you uncover or deal with any feelings of grief or lingering sadness or depression that you may have, or that you may know somebody else is going through at this time. Okay, so let's take a look at that and we'll see what kind of advice comes out. Okay, so let's see what we got going on here. So, dear spirit, what is the root of depression? What is the root cause of depression in humans? We'll stick with humans for now. We can worry about dolphins at another time, though I'm not too sure dolphins ever do get depressed. They seem pretty happy. They seem like they have their own little thing going on. But what we have so far here for us humans is the Three of Swords, okay? Now, Three of Swords is a card that talks about heartbreak, right? Now, that seems pretty obvious. You're depressed, you're sad about something, right? Maybe, you got cheated on. Maybe your grandmother killed your other grandmother. Or it's possible that you just poured a bowl of cereal without checking to see if you had milk first. We all have varying degrees of things that affect us, right? It depends on our emotional threshold and what kind of upbringing we've had and how we deal with responses and stuff like that. In fact, most of our responses are conditioned. But with the Three of Swords specifically, it talks about something that has already happened, right? So then when we look at depression, all depression is caused from something that has already happened. Now, it may not seem too wise, but if you think about it just for a second, when we're experiencing depression now, in the present moment, it helps to understand that what we're experiencing now is something unresolved from years ago, and it could be decades ago, really, depending on how old you are, right? And most depression is caused in childhood. Okay, most grief that then leads to depression is caused in childhood, I should say, right? Because as an adult, we don't really know why we're upset, why we're so sad. In fact, we can probably logically point to many things that we should be grateful for: the size of your penis, the shape of your breast, the money that you have in your bank account, the fact that you might have friends you can eat, maybe a bed to sleep in and a shower to wash in, right? But most of our emotional issues that we would categorize as depression, the grief, the sadness, the sort of the listlessness, sort of just wasting away, the feelings of boredom, stagnation, right? All those things, they have all occurred in the past because of some emotional deficiency, something that occurred in a past part of yourself that has never been resolved. Okay, so it talks about a fundamental breaking of the heart, but something that's already long been experienced. But as a child, when we probably experienced it, we only dealt with it in the best way that we could, never actually moving through those emotions. So depression is essentially trapped emotions, okay? So I'm going to get one or two more cards here. So what else is the root cause of depression? Okay, yeah, we have the Five of Coins. So the Five of Pentacles, more traditionally, as it's known as, talks about feelings of lack. Okay, so depression is a feeling of lack, which we've already kind of touched on a little bit. You can see this girl here. I think it's a girl. She is left out in the cold. She's outside this church, and churches, of course, are known for, or at least, well, they're known for a lot of things, but some of what they're known for is being able to help the less fortunate. Okay, and the fact that she's outside of a church means that an organization failed her. Okay, that's what I take away from this card anyway. I have slight problems with religion, maybe major problems, but in any case, the foundation did not and would not help her. Okay, so she's felt that she's been left down. So what this talks about is structures of tradition having failed you. Oftentimes when we experience depression, it is because something has failed us. Now, we've already talked about the emotional deficiency, something happening. We didn't understand it at the time, so we locked it all away, trapped emotions. But why do we have trapped emotions? Did a parent ever help us uncover those emotions? Was it the parent that made us feel this way? What what was the organization that caused us to feel lack and grief, and to basically make us feel like we've been left out of the cold, like we can't come forward with our problems, like we basically have to fend for ourselves. So a huge part of depression is this feeling of lack and insecurity, and this basis around self-worth, basically being failed by the organizations and institutions and the society in which we grow up on, that is more than willing to push aside negative emotions, either in the hopes that they don't really exist and you can just soldier on, or that we should always be positive and not have any negativity at all, right? So it goes hand in hand with the Three of Swords, and I can speak of this from certainly my own life, and not having a support system to deal with any emotions that I had, and also having the support system that I did have, which wasn't really a support system, be a major cause of those feelings in the first place, right? So we have some hand in hand going on there, right? And I'm going to get one more card for the root cause of depression. And then we have the Devil card, okay? So all these cards are making sense. The Devil card talks about temptations in its more traditional sense, right? We think of the devil as the snake in the tree who told Eve to do something bad, and of course she didn't listen. Sounds like more like the man wouldn't listen, but I guess that might have been an early, maybe I could be crazy, but maybe it was trying to demonize the female when a male was basically the predominant figure in history at that time. But what do I know, right? But in any case, the devil does represent some element of codependency, attachment, negativity, and a belief in the wrong path, okay? So essentially that is what the devil represents metaphorically, is taking the wrong advice, okay? So when you couple this card with the other two cards, what we're talking about is a element of negativity that's inherent within the person, okay? I don't want to say within the soul, within the true essence of who you are, right? It's not like that, but it's a negativity within the character, within the personality, within the experience of your human life thus far. Remember, we've already talked about burying those emotions, not being able to deal with them, and we've talked about not having a support system and being failed in some degree by somebody, right? So now we're talking about what that somebody is, and it's a major arcana, so it's the heavier of the emotion, and it's inherent negativity. Depression is of itself a belief that you are not worthy of something, that you're not good enough, that you can't do something. So even though the basis of that is illogical, and it's based in things that really had nothing to do with you and whether you could or couldn't do anything, rather than something that was conditioned into you, what was conditioned into you here is the devil, so to speak. And that's kind of where that idea of where there's a Christian idea, of course, of the devil being in people when they're either depressed or angry or things like that, right? It's a metaphor, really, just for the negativity, for the flaw, for the character flaw of escapism or codependency or addictions. But really, it all just comes down to this sort of like switch that just can't be turned on, or in a way that has been turned on. It's this negativity, this idea that we are worthless creatures bound to just live and die with no purposeful meaning whatsoever. A very nihilistic view of yourself and life. And of course, as we all know, that leads to things such as suicide, or even worse, if you could formulate the argument, a life not worth lived, or a life that hasn't been lived. So we have this inherent negativity that feeds depression. Depression feeds on negative emotions, and negative emotions feeds on depression. All of it comes back to negative trapped emotions. So what I'm going to do before I end is just some helpful tools, maybe some advice for how we can deal with depression moving forward. So let's see what Spirit has to say. So dear Spirit, how can people move on from depression? What tips can they move to help heal, use to help heal depression? I've been mixing up my words all day. I didn't get very much sleep last night, so excuse me if I sound like this is the first time I've ever done a video before. So we have the King of Wands, so we have some positive energy. Now, you'll notice in this card, we have the Phoenix being represented as the King of Wands here. Now, whether you may or may not know this, the Phoenix is a representation of rebirth. If you've ever seen Harry Potter, you'll have seen the Phoenix, and you'll have understood that it is a creature that dies once it's reached its lifespan, and then it is reborn as a younger version of itself. So what that represents metaphorically, is similar to the butterfly, is this transformation and rebirth, new cycles, and etc., and so on, right? So the King of Wands represents the Phoenix energy in the sense that one of the best ways to get out of depression is to do something, okay? And really the King of Wands represents a worldly man, somebody who has experienced a lot. One of the problems with depression and I know this, I think, from my own life, is that I was the most depressed in my life when I was only attached to one particular experience, and one that because it happened in the past, wasn't really what I was remembering. Essentially, I was doing the same old thing. I was stagnant. My depression started to alleviate itself when I took action. This is what the King of Wands represents. I traveled a lot. I started to do things that, even though I was sad, I figured to myself, I don't care, I'm just going to do it anyway, because I was already sad. I was already depressed. I already didn't feel like I had any meaning in my life, and I was already disgusted or shameful or angry at myself, and for whatever these feelings were that go on and on and on, of course, I figured it didn't really matter because I could feel that anyway, right? But why not just do the things? Jeez, sorry. Why not just do the things that I wanted to do anyway? So I started to travel a lot, and naturally my depression went away because I started to experience the world, and I started to see things through different perspectives, and I started to connect with people in at least some kind of way to realize that my depression wasn't only experienced by me, and I started to feel more of life. Okay, and we also have elements of nature here, but you have to take steps to be reborn, and in order to take steps to be reborn, it really comes down to one thing: do anything, no matter how small it is. You're not going to become undepressed, so to speak. You're not going to become at peace with yourself overnight, because we're talking about years and years and years of trapped emotions, right? Now, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to take years and years and years to feel as whole as you once did as a child. In fact, really, it only takes the epiphany to realize that there's really never been anything wrong with you. So couple that with the King of Wands, and we have this need to take action, to take any small step in any direction of you choosing, regardless of what may happen, because it's in your right to be reborn as a phoenix, and it's your destiny. So one of the biggest things that helped me personally is travel, and you may do that as well. COVID, I believe, is lessening if you are suffering with depression, but just as a general rule for the future, travel, meet new people, do anything that gets you out of your head, experience life without fear, and don't be afraid to have these emotions, because they're not going to go away. So naturally, you face these fears as much as you can, because they're not going to go away overnight. It does take some growth before you finally realize you don't need to hold on to them anymore, and so you don't need to be worried about it. One of the biggest things I remember from feeling depressed is that I didn't feel like doing anything, because I thought, what was the point? A lot of procrastination energy, which you might recognize if you've ever suffered from depression. And it really started to change when I figured, like, oh shit, I'm gonna fucking hate myself tomorrow still, so why not just do a thing? So that's kind of how I started to get out of it, was I just took some small action, because I figured it didn't matter. I just took some small action, and it eventually proves itself. So I'm not going to waste any more time with this video, even though it is an important topic. These are meant to be short and sweet. So I hope this video helps you guys. Please let me know what you guys think of this series. I'm going to have more of these videos coming up. I am sorry for the inconsistency in the way that I produce my videos, but I hope that as I mature in my own spiritual growth, I learn to take these things a little bit more seriously. Appreciate you guys. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, and we will talk soon. See you guys.